We have a product that puts more stem cells in circulation. We have put this to the test with people with congestive heart failure, age 65 to 75. Of the first 10 patients in that study, after 6 months, all 10 have normal heart function. Their old 75-year-old stem cells have done the job.
Well, hey everybody, welcome into Pushing the Limits. Fantastic to have you with me today. I have Christian Drapeau from Stemregen with me, and Christian is a repeat offender on the show. He's been on before. He's also been a great inspiration to me and to me starting my company. So welcome to the show, and thank you once again, Christian, for being here today and for all the work that you do. It's fantastic to have
My
you.
pleasure. My pleasure. We've tried to do this for quite some time now, so I'm glad it's happening.
Yeah, and I'm the one who keeps dropping the ball, and I'm sure your assistant Jonah wants to shoot me, but we've got
No,
me now.
you're busy. We know that you're busy. What you're doing with your mother is remarkable, so no problem.
Yeah, I really appreciate the consideration. Christian, we talked at length last time about your history, but for those who maybe haven't heard the first episode, could you just walk us back in time, because you are Mr. Stem Cell. You really were at the beginning of this whole genre, if you like, of stem cell research as a scientist, as a young scientist in this field, what, 27 years ago now, I think, or 25 years ago. Can you just walk us through that early sort of thing, and then we'll sort of get into where the latest research is at?
Okay, so I'll let you guide me with questions here if you want to go a little bit deeper, because I don't want to bore your listeners with all the details. But in 1995, I was hired by a company that was selling in America. The name was Celtec, and they were selling a blue-green algae that was harvested from a lake in Southern Oregon. At the time, the product was called super blue-green algae. And so this was just about a year after the passage of DSHEA, the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act. So the company, like any other company selling a product, they had to have scientific information to support any of the claims that they would make on the product. So I was hired to come study this product and see what it was doing in the body and what kind of claims we could make and support. So I started by an overall review of, generally speaking, what people were reporting by consuming these products, and trying to find, like, what are the big buckets in which I can sort of all these benefits. And it really was fitting very well into three buckets: inflammation, immune support, and the brain. So we very quickly identified the main mechanisms of action and active compounds for the benefits touching the brain, inflammation, and the immune system. But as I'm doing all this work, I came across people who reversed multiple sclerosis, severe heart disease, insulin-dependent diabetes, emphysema, Parkinson, Alzheimer's, reversals from the consequence of a stroke. And as a scientist, you come across these stories, and you look at the person and you say, "Thank you for telling me your story. I'm glad for you." But what do you do with this? Like, it's just a story.
It's an
It's
N of
not
one.
science.
Yeah.
But when it's like 10, 20, 50, and some of them, at some point I was curious. So I said, "Can I see your medical records?" And some of them, it became clear here, there's something that really happened that led to serious improvements in their health. And oftentimes these are cases that take a heart disease, for example. Somebody has a heart condition for 10 years. Medicine has done everything that they can, and suddenly that person recovers. You cannot just discard this.
No.
So there were many of these cases, and enough of them to kind of really push me to try to better understand, like, what was this product doing, and was it doing something? So one thing leading to another. Early 2000, I came across, actually 2001, I came across an article documenting stem cells leaving the bone marrow, going to the brain, and becoming a brain cell. So we go back
Wow.
in 2001. Stem cells are only known to be precursors to blood cells. They're not known to become other types of cells. There's a dogma at the time. They're unable to become other types of cells. So that was the dogma of the time. And the brain does not repair. So
Oh,
this
yeah.
is stem
I've heard
cells
that one.
going to the brain. It's like it's two dogmas that are fractured. that stem cells can be more than just blood cells, and of all things, they can actually repair the brain. So I thought it was fascinating. So I went to the local medical library and I looked for anything I could find on stem cells, and I found one other documentation of stem cells going to the heart and becoming heart cells, and another one to the liver. So I just thought, on the basis of what was available to me at the time, if stem cells can become heart, liver, and brain, I could not think of a physiological mechanism that will allow that transformation, but limit it to those three tissues. How could a stem cells become heart, brain, and liver, but not pancreas, lung, skin, and the rest? It made no sense. So I
Hmm.
just assumed it's just a matter of time. Scientists will show that stem cells can become other thing. So let's assume that they can become everything. And if they can, then it must be on purpose. So they have to be the repair system of the body. So I published an article with my colleague at the time in a journal called Medical Hypotheses, suggesting that stem cells were the repair system of the body. Just like the body has an immune system, it has a repair system. And what if this plant was stimulating the repair system? So we acquired at the time a flow cytometer to count stem cells, and with the hypothesis that this product was triggering the release of stem cells from the bone marrow, because the data was already, it was thin at the time, but already there was data at the time showing that there was a link between the number of stem cells in circulation and the body's ability to repair. So the idea was, if this product is putting more stem cells in circulation, these stem cells are going into the pancreas of the diabetic, the heart of the heart patient, the lung of the emphysema patient, the brain of the stroke patient, and so on. So we started to do the work on ourselves at first. So we took a blood sample, took the product, counted stem cells before and after, and then we revealed the whole phenomenon. This product was acting as a stem cell mobilizer or a stem cell releaser, to make this simple. And that was the beginning of the
Long
rest of my
journey.
life, if you want, in the field of stem cell research. So, investigating plants that have an effect on stem cells, the determination that stem cells are the repair system. And right now, I'm really taking where we are today with all that research, writing another book, and it's leading to something, and hopefully we'll have a chance to talk about it today. But I think it's something that will change the way that we practice medicine.
Oh, wow. Okay, that sounds really exciting because you wrote your first book, Cracking the Stem Cell Code. Brilliant book. And you've also now developed a whole protocol of products. You know, when we first, excuse me, when we first talked, you had Release, which is your original product that was on the market, which puts 10 million odd stem cells out into circulation from the bone marrow every time you take 2 capsules of these, your daily dose.
Mhm. Yep.
And at that time, that was the only one that you had on the market. And
Hmm.
some of the incredible stories and even ones that I've seen in my practice after having people being on stem regen release have been remarkable. And so tell me a little bit before we head into release and then the following products, your ethos of going around the world to find out, was this AFA the only thing that caused stem cell
Hmm.
release? And looking at traditional medicines and Ayurvedic medicines and Madagascar and all over the place, you sort of looked at the wisdom of folklore, which I really love, and then started to match the science up to see where, well, that this blue-green algae did it. Does anything else do it? Just tell us a little bit about that story briefly before we move into the new
Well,
stuff.
when I first documented that this blue-green algae from Klamath Lake was triggering the release of stem cells from the bone marrow, the first response by the scientific community across the board was, "This is nuts. Stem cells are not becoming cells of other tissue. So putting more stem cells that do nothing in the body means absolutely nothing, and actually maybe it's bad for you."
Wow.
So from the get-go, in order to show that this was real, we had to show a mechanism of action, active compound, proof of concept. So we did all this work over
Mm,
maybe, like, let's say 3, 4 years. So
yeah.
we identified the active compound, we filed all the patents, we did a proof of concept in an animal model of injury where we trigger an injury and then trigger the release of stem cells from the bone marrow using this blue-green algae extract, and to show that the group of animals that received this blue-green algae repaired and healed faster than the other group. So we did all this work. We published all this work, but as I'm doing this, in my mind, it's becoming clear now, and this evolved into the book Cracking the Stem Cell Code, and now in the next book that I'm working on. But to understand that this is really a part of our physiology. It's not something exceptional. Stem cells, oftentimes, it's just like an exotic treatment, expensive
Mm.
treatment, and we need to bring it down to reality. It
Yeah.
is just like your natural repair system. So, if it is the natural repair system of the body, and we have evolved in symbiosis with the environment, it cannot be that there's just one plant extract, one plant growing from this bizarre blue-green algae in one lake in southern Oregon that has an effect on stem cells. It's absolutely impossible. So there are other plants, so let's go and find them. And the
Wow.
question, just like we experience many benefits with this blue-green algae, I just asked the same question. I dove in the scientific literature to find plants that had been historically associated with a broad variety of health benefits.
Mm.
And stem cells had never been studied. So the new hypothesis was some of these plants, maybe their mechanism of action is that they trigger stem cell release or support stem cell function in some manner. And that's really what is their main mechanism of action. So, and then I started to ask questions like, if I were to ask you that question, like what is known to lead to many benefits, and immediately you'd think like goji berries, medicinal mushroom, seaweeds, those adaptogens. So we tested many of them, and they all have an effect on stem cells
Amazing. Yeah.
of different degree and
Degrees.
different aspects of stem cell function.
Mm-hmm.
But along the way, I also had opportunities to travel to some parts of the world, and I was always super curious. Like you go to Madagascar, for example. What like Madagascar is a market that is sort of outside of international trade. So they don't have like Chinese plants. They have Madagascar plants. So the
Mm-hmm.
question was, what are they using there in Madagascar? Like, what is their go-to plant? And it turns out that there is one specific species of aloe that of 65 species of aloe growing in Madagascar, there's one specific species that has been used over centuries to make a local product called Vahona that has been used for all kinds of health issues. So I put my hands on some of that, I tested it, and we saw a very robust response on stem cell release. So we developed that now as a product. At some point, I'm traveling in China, and I had access to three biochemists that had done their PhD working on plants that are part of the Chinese pharmacopoeia. So I asked them, okay, you're lost on an island, and I literally asked them the question, you're lost on an island, and what is the one plant from the entire Chinese pharmacopoeia that you'll bring with you?
Wow.
Thinking in my mind, like, well, that would be a great candidate as a stem cell mobilizer, with the general understanding that if you are a stem cell mobilizer as a plant, you put more stem cells in circulation, they will go in the pancreas of the diabetic, the heart of the heart patient, like they will repair. So that
Yeah.
means historically they will have been associated with many
With it.
benefits. And
Mm-hmm.
all three told me sea buckthorn berry. I was
Wow.
not expecting that answer. So I dove into science and found that indeed it had been associated with many kinds of benefits touching the lung, the heart, cardiovascular system, pancreatic function, and to boost repair from broken bones, burn to the skin. So it looked like a great candidate. So I went on the Tibetan Plateau, find a farm that I started to work with. We developed an extract, we tested it, and we found a significant release of stem cells from the bone marrow. So, and that is how I develop one by one these different ingredients. We're still doing more work here to identify plants. Keep in mind, the first one, AFA, this blue-green algae, turned out to be right now of the top 5 that I have documented over the years. It's probably the weakest one.
Wow.
So
Wow.
we discovered the phenomenon with that plant, but it's not the strongest. So in my mind, there could very well be like others that are even
Yeah. Yeah.
stronger than what
Yeah.
we have right now. So we're keeping this work, but that's sort of the whole journey of finding these plants.
A bit of a sideways out of the box question for you, but is AI actually helping you now speed up that process? Can you test more molecules quicker? Is that helping at all at this point of the time?
It is extremely helpful, but not in the sense of testing molecules,
Right.
simply because it's not a biochemical reaction. It's a systems effect,
Uh-huh.
something that you orally take, goes into your digestive system, transformed or not by your digestive system. Some ingredients, we have clues that you need to have some effect of the digestive system. Then you absorb these molecules, they go to the bone marrow. We have some clues that some of the effect could also be brain mediated, meaning some of
Mhm.
these compounds touch the some of the nerve terminals in the gut, and through this gut brain relationship, it plays a role in stem cell mobilization. So it's a complex system, too complex right now to be summarized into a simple in vitro assay or an AI model at this point. So we
Wow.
really do it the good old ways, which is we do a human assay. So people consume the product and we count stem cells before and after. Where
Wow.
AI has been extremely useful is to dive in the scientific literature and try to identify plants that may not be obvious, at the onset, but plants that actually could be good stem cell mobilizers. And more important than that, I've used AI like tremendously as I'm working on that next book to really extract from the scientific literature a completely new understanding of health that I think is going to change, the way that we think of medicine. If you want, I can dive into it for a moment.
Yeah, yeah, please do. Please do. Now
Very
you've
cool.
piqued my
I think it's
curiosity.
exciting. I think it's exciting because I have said for a number of years there's a direct link between how many stem cells you have in your bloodstream and the body's ability to repair. You put more stem cells in circulation, you will repair better regardless of the problem that you have. You're giving back to your body its ability to repair. It is a good way to summarize the effect. However, it is a little bit of a fruitcake statement for a clinician. You
Mhm.
just give this product and suddenly everything gets better. And it's not, we don't get the same kind of benefits across the board with everybody touching every single aspects of human health. There are differences. We get good response with the heart. We don't get as good response with the kidney, for example. Why? I had to dive a little bit deeper to really see how this process is taking place and playing itself out in all various organs and tissues of the body. And as I'm digging into all of that, something has emerged that is really changing, I think, the understanding of disease formation. And also, I think it will change the way that we practice medicine. And it's this concept that, let's say you go and see a doctor because you have a problem, regardless of what the problem is. The doctor will ask a bunch of questions, and in their mind, the process is to try to identify, am I facing in this person a problem, a digestive problem? Is it intestinal flora? Is it inflammation? Is it cardiovascular? Is it hormonal imbalance? Is it neurotransmitter imbalance? And I mean, you go through all these processes to try to focus on what the problem is. But in this inquiry, never is there a question, am I facing in this person a failure of endogenous repair? Is it a failure of the repair system of that person?
Yeah, yeah.
And as I'm diving into all of that, something is emerging that is extremely powerful because it's out there in the scientific literature through hundreds of studies, yet never brought together with this concept. And it is the fact that we do not develop degenerative diseases or age-related diseases because the body go through a process of degeneration, wear and tear. You go through wear and tear from the day you're born.
Yeah,
From
yeah.
the day you're born, you're losing cells. The
Mhm.
problem is that your ability to offset this degenerative process that is there all your life, that ability to regenerate declines as you age. So you develop problem because of a failure of endogenous repair. It's
Yeah,
a
yeah.
very simple, it's a slight different angle of looking at the problem, but it completely changes the focus. Instead of
Wow.
focusing on trying to find what has made this tissue degenerate, the question is, what has led, well, it happens in everybody naturally, but what can I do to boost the process of endogenous repair? Because that's what is faulty. The degenerative process is not faulty. It's been there all your life.
Yep.
But before you had enough capacity to repair to offset it. So the core phenomenon across the board, it's a failure of endogenous repair. And then I'm
I love
diving in
that.
this book on how it manifests itself in the heart, in the pancreas, in the lung, in the kidney, in the gut, and everywhere. And the literature is unbelievable. It is what is happening. Everything results from endogenous repair, but we've always focused, medicine has focused on the problem
On the,
itself,
yeah.
trying to mask the symptoms, improve the symptoms, slow down the progression of the problem without ever considering the other side of the equation, which is your natural ability to repair that tissue.
Yeah, and this just makes so much sense to me, actually. Like
Simple.
rather than this band-aid approach that we do, and we've also siloed medicine into, the cardiologist and everybody has their specialty, and there's no. But what you're saying is basically our repair mechanisms are just not keeping up with the degradation that's happening, and the wear and tear that's going on a daily basis, and we're actually exposed to this from the day we're born onwards.
Mhm.
And that balance
Yep.
is getting more and more out of your favor as you get older and older. And that repair mechanism is the stem cell mechanisms that you're,
Correct. The
you're talking
driving
about.
factor, there's more than just that simple statement, but it's the
Yeah.
core fundamental reality
Yeah.
is that we are born with red marrow that converts into fatty marrow that I used to say that does not make stem cells. Actually, it does make stem cells, but it makes stem cells at a much, much lower rate. So
Right.
essentially, that conversion from red marrow to yellow marrow, fatty marrow, leads to a reciprocal decline in the number of circulating stem cells. The fat cells that develops in the bone marrow forms an inhibitory signal on release. So the outcome is that while you have about 70% of your bone marrow that has converted to fatty marrow by age something like 40, 50, you are facing at age 50 roughly about 90%, 95% decline in the number of stem cells. By decline, I mean the number of stem cells in circulation compared to how many of them you had when you were born on the day of your birth. So that this drastic decline that has reached about a 90% decline by age 30 is your ability to repair. It's age
Hmm.
related. It's a natural physiological process of the human body. There's nothing we can do about it so far. So that ability to repair declines, and at some point in our late 30s, early 40s, we all experience that we don't recover as well as we used to. As an athlete, I am sure you've seen this
Oh,
in
yeah.
your own life.
Yeah.
So the driving factor is not because we have accumulated more problems, so the burden
No.
is heavier. It's because you don't have the same ability to repair. That's the
Yes.
reason why you have that experience, and you experience it in recovery from running a race, but it's present in every aspect of your life and of your body, meaning the normal turnover rate that is taking place in all your organs and tissues is no longer compensated by this ability to repair. So deficits are developing in various tissues. It's really
Wow.
that simple.
And when you release the stem cells out of the bone marrow, I think I asked this to you in the first podcast, but just wanted to reiterate, because my initial thought was, then aren't you depleting what's there? And you said no, that's not
Mhm.
the case. So can you just explain that mechanism? So when you take stem regen release, or you
Mhm.
take some of these wonderful plants that we have in the world that help release the stem cells, how does that not deplete what's already in there? Are you born with a certain amount of stem cells and that's it, or how does that work?
No, the stem cells in your bone marrow are so-called immortal. So they will multiply during the entire life of an individual. You don't have somebody who just runs out of stem cells
Right.
and dies because they run out of stem cells. Now, it's a I mean, we could go into many layers of that statement, meaning that yes, eventually somebody dies because they have depleted so much their natural repair system that the body can no longer cope with the normal process of life, if you want. But that depletion does not happen because of an overusage of the bone marrow. The bone marrow stays consistent. It's an ability to make stem cells. It just shrinks over time. So it's like your reserve shrinks, but your reserves keeps the same activity and is not really affected by you releasing more stem cells. And it's
That's
easy to
key.
demonstrate this in many ways, like your example, for example, an athlete, anytime that you do like a really serious workout or training session, you will increase the number of stem cells in circulation as a repair response to the micro traumas, micro lesions that you have generated into your tissues. So you take an athlete that has trained, let's say, for 30 years. During 30 years, they have released more stem cells than a normal person. Are athletes running out of stem cells? It's
No.
not a phenomenon that is there. So no, you do not deplete your bone marrow by supporting the release of stem cells from your bone marrow. Take all the plants that we have now shown uh, act as stem cell mobilizers. They have centuries of history of use, and nowhere have anybody reported that these product has some sort of a side effect that would be related to the bone marrow. It's not existent. You are producing stem cells during your entire life.
Yeah, and that's probably why athletes look better when they're older, generally speaking. A bit of a generalization, but by being an active person that is keeping themselves fit, you probably are releasing more over time and doing yourself some benefit as long as you're not overtraining, which I tended to do. But that's another
Mhm.
story. Now, just going into the whole stem cell genre in general, not just from taking plants, but we all hear about the stem cell injections and now exosomes and these types of things. Do these also have a place in a healthy person who's wanting to optimize their longevity? Do these work in synergy, say, with Stemregen and what is the nuance of that conversation with the different types of stem cells? Is it dangerous to get stem cells from an external factor? The placental stem cell, sorry, that's an umbilical cord. Yeah, give us a little bit of a
Mhm.
breakdown on the stuff outside of the stem region.
This is a big question because you will ask the question to people who are using different kinds of stem cells, and they'll tell you that theirs are the best and the other ones are
Yeah.
not good. So,
Mm-hmm.
so I need to really take this with a distance here and just present to you as objectively as possible. They're
Mm-hmm.
all good. They're all working. The science of stem cell injection is evolving fast.
Mm-hmm.
Many questions still remains. Why do some people have absolutely phenomenal recovery while others don't? You hear people saying stem cell injections are worthless. Yeah, you're wasting your money, and it flies in the face of those who have had absolutely life transforming experience with sometimes just like one injection of stem cells. So the question is really, why aren't they doing their work when they don't do anything? Because they are your repair system, they work. So once we've established this, and there are clinics now, the main focus in the whole world of stem cell injection is how do you prepare the terrain in order to receive
Yes.
these stem cells? Because receiving the stem cells is one thing, but your body needs to be able to receive them, and there are many layers to that. Because
Mm-hmm.
when you get stem cell injection, contrary to when you release your own, this is your own repair system. You've done this all your life. Like every single individual in the world has experienced that the body repairs. Everybody has had a cut, a broken bone, something, and you witness that your body repairs. So how is your body repairing? It's through your stem cells. Everybody has seen this process. So your own stem cells are working. But when you get stem cells from somebody else or even your own extracted, but then re-injected into your bloodstream, they are injected into your venous blood, meaning your
Mm-hmm.
venous blood, the first place that it will go is into your lung. The size of capillaries in your lung are such that most of these cells actually will not survive. So the
Wow.
main effect is really the release of, I would say, thousand. It's more like trillions of exosomes. So it's a real message of repair that is sent throughout the body that can have a lot of implications. Some of these stem cells will engraft, will go to the bone marrow, and that's what varies in different people. I think that part of the answer is there in terms of the people who get great results, others who don't. Now, the source of these stem cells, the one that is growing, let me take a little bit of a step back here. I'll come back to the direct answer in a few moments. When I wrote Cracking the Stem Cell Code, I went through a little bit of a phase here that was bizarre in my life, in the sense that I had hired a PR firm to go and go on the major media to explain. This was early 2010. Obama had just lifted the ban on stem cell research, embryonic stem cell research that
Yep.
was in the U.S. and uh, and as that research was moving forward, I thought that the public needed to be educated about what stem cell was, because post the Bush elections and that era, the message had been put out there in the society in general, in the public, that stem cells were like baby parts, like they were killing
Yeah,
babies to
yeah,
get stem cells. It was
yeah,
sort
no,
of a Frankenstein medicine, and none of this is true. It has never
no,
been true.
no.
So I thought the people needed to be educated on the whole concept. So I went on this, not lecture, but like media tour, and I was scheduled on many of these major media channels, but I did not do one of them. Every single
Wow.
one of them was canceled a few days before, two of them as I'm walking into the studio.
Wow.
And my PR firm at the time was like completely like clueless, like they had never seen something like this. And and at some point, and at the same time, the International Society for Stem Cell Research, of which I was a member, sent me a letter, and I was put under investigation. Investigation for what? Because I was claiming things about adult stem cells that they did not like. It's like, I don't know, you getting investigated by AAA because you buy a car that they don't like. It was
Yeah,
so profoundly ridiculous.
yeah.
And I was trying to understand why all of this was
Not
happening.
surprised.
And I get at some point, out of the blue, I get a cold call from somebody. He did not identify himself, so I don't know who he was. But this man was telling me, he says, "I read your book. I'm hearing what is happening with you, and I read your book. So you're right on. Like you got the picture, but you're missing the bigger context of all of this." And I say, "Well, tell me, educate me." And he's trying to tell me. His first question was, "What do you think is the mission of the International Society for Stem Cell Research?" And I say,
Mhm.
"Well, it's they want to study embryonic stem cell research, because at the time when you go to one of their events of 5 days of lectures and meetings, there's one morning dedicated to adult stem cells, and the rest is embryonic stem cells." I say their
Wow.
focus is embryonic stem cells. And he
Yeah.
says, "That's where you're missing the picture. Somebody got a $10 million grant from one of the big pharma company to create an organization aimed at clouding adult stem cell research,
Mm.
because everybody knew that the future of medicine was in adult stem cells. But at the time, it would escape pharma, because stem cell means cure. Today, the pharma-based medical system is no cure. You are worth so much more.
Oh,
Me
yeah.
selling you insulin
Oh, yeah.
every day of life until the rest of your life, instead of curing your diabetes. So stem cells was the biggest threat into the
Wow.
history of pharma. So
Wow.
they did not know how to respond. They had no way of capturing the stem cell momentum, if you want, because you could go to see a doctor. They take stem cells from your fat or your bone marrow and your blood, spin it, put it back into your body. The only people who made money is the doctor, the people selling syringe and a centrifuge. Pharma is completely cut out of this
Yeah.
novel curative healing medicine. So the response initially was, let's cloud the whole issue, make it like dense, fear, scare people of the whole concept, and make people think the future is embryonic stem cells. And everybody knew that it was not the future, but it would create a window of 10, 20, 30 years, during
To
which
slow
time
it all
they
down.
can recapture the pharma model, recapture stem cells. So I'm saying all of this because now I'm coming back to what I was telling you. Umbilical cord stem cell now is what is growing. Why? Because pharma companies were able to develop these networks of collection, the ways of freezing them, collecting them,
Wow.
preserving them, packaging them into a small vial. So now, as a doctor, you order your little vial, you take it, and you give it to a person. Now, this has productized stem cells in
Mm.
a way that is somewhat like pharma model.
Yep.
And the claim is that, of course, these umbilical cord stem cells are the best. And A lot of this is marketing. So let's try to put all of the marketing aside. I'll give it to you really as objective as possible. Young stem cells are better than old stem cells. So yes, umbilical cord stem cells are more effective than your own bone marrow stem cells or your own fat stem cells. However, this has led to a claim that we find everywhere, oftentimes by doctors who do umbilical cord stem cells, to say you need umbilical cord stem cells because your 50-year-old stem cells are worthless. Even Tony
I've
Robbins
heard
on a,
that.
on a podcast at some point
Yep.
said something like, past 40 years of age, your stem cells are falling down the cliff.
Mm-mm.
Absolutely untrue. The blatant proof of this, we have a product that puts more stem cells in circulation. We have put this to the test with people with congestive heart failure, age 65 to 75. Of the first 10 patients in that study, after 6 months, all 10 have normal heart function. Their old 75-year-old stem cells have done the job. So compared one to one, before, like you take a 60-year-old man and a 15-year-old man and you make them sprint, which one wins that race? The 15-year-old, no question. But if you run a 1 month marathon, the 60-year-old is probably likely to be more focused, more stronger mentally. At the end, they may actually win that race. That's your
Yep.
older stem cells.
Yeah.
You release them every day.
Wow.
The cumulative power of your own stem cells is not to be discarded, is
Yep.
totally, totally valuable. But as a one-time injection, yes, your umbilical cord stem cells are stronger, but they come with some negatives.
Mm-hmm.
These negatives are not big. They just need to be known. These are not your stem cells. You could develop a micro reaction or rejection to them. Will they lead to some sort of autoimmune problem? It's an open question. It has not been seen, but if you develop something 3 years down the road, you cannot tell that it was this injection. But
Yeah.
at this point, no documentation. You can have foreign tissues in there that could lead to this development. You could have like improper management, if you want, of these samples, so they can be contaminated. It
Mm-hmm.
is rare, but it is today the most commonly reported side effects of stem cell injection, umbilical cord stem cell injection, is to get an injection with a contaminated sample and it triggers
Mm-hmm.
sepsis, so systemic
Wow.
infection.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it is rare, but it happens. There was another issue, kind of thought to be intellectual for a while, which is the fact that you get stem cells from somebody else who may have in their DNA something that encodes for some form of disease. And
Yep.
then could you transfer that to somebody else? Could you receive that? If you get umbilical cord stem cells. And a study was published about 2 years ago now, in which they injected a gene that codes for Alzheimer's in a mice. They inserted that gene, took stem cells from these animals, injected that into recipients, and they developed Alzheimer's. So
Mm-hmm.
just to show that,
Mm-hmm.
yes, you can transfer these. Now, people will say, yeah, but we test for all these diseases. Great. But you can only test for what you can test for, what you know what
Yeah.
to test for. So at
Yeah.
the end of the day, it doesn't mean that it's 100% safe. And oftentimes the argument is, yeah, but if you get a treatment like this and you're 60 and it takes 60 years to develop Alzheimer's, well, you'll be at 120, so that's fine. I am not saying that it's not a good thing to do. All I'm saying is that these are the risks that come extremely small. I would not have the worry of receiving umbilical cord stem cells. Just to tell you that
Mm-hmm.
I won't do it. I don't think there's a need for it. But I would not be afraid of doing it because of those reasons. But they
Yep.
exist.
Yeah. Yeah.
And these risks don't exist really when you get an injection of your own stem cells. So that's
Great.
the overall landscape, if you want, of stem cell injection. And then into this comes the whole world of exosomes, which is extremely relevant because sometimes you can have even better results, with exosomes. It really
Yeah.
depends on the person. It
Yep.
depends on the terrain. What you need to understand is that exosomes are the language of stem cells. So
Mm-hmm.
that's how stem cells talk to each other. So if you inject stem cells, but you are a poor producer of exosomes, well, you're unlikely to see really great results of that stem cell injection. If you
Wow.
get exosome injection, but you don't have a lot of stem cells in circulation, your exosomes don't have a whole lot of people to talk to. So
Uh-huh.
oftentimes, not oftentimes, optimally, it should be the two together to really
Uh-huh.
get, optimal outcome of a stem cell injection.
Can you
That's
just
sort of the overall
define
landscape.
can you just define what an exosome is? Is it like a piece of the stem cell, a part of
Okay.
it, sort of thing?
Okay. You know what is a liposome?
Yes.
So, like you buy like liposomal vitamin C, for
Liposomal.
example.
Yep.
A
Filler.
liposome.
Yeah.
Exactly. So lipo means lipid, which is
Yep.
fat. A zome means a small vesicule, like a
Hmm.
bubble, if you want. So it's a fat bubble that has been filled with the compounds that you want to put into a liposome because it will make it more absorbable by your body. So
Yeah.
that's a liposome. Anything that ends with zome means it's a little bubble. Now, the other word is how you want to qualify them. So something that is an endosome, it means it's a fat bubble that you create inside the cell. An exosome is a fat bubble that you create and you externalize from the cell. So that's an exosome. So an
Uh-huh.
exosome is basically a little fat pocket that the cell membrane or the cell will release that is filled with messengers,
Yep.
molecules that do signaling. And because a lot of these cells, the majority of them, are very unstable and very short lived. There's a bunch of enzymes in the environment that are meant to chop these signals very quickly. So, for that signal to effectively leave one cell, travel, and talk to another cell, it's released into these small pockets called exosomes, which travel. And when they touch the membrane of another cell, then they merge with that cell and they carry the signal inside the cell, and it will
Amazing.
tell that cell whatever the message they want to give. So if you need to repair tissue, well, it may tell that cell, okay, you need to transform into skin cell, you need to transform into muscle cells, you need to shut down inflammation, you need to multiply. I mean, there's billion kind of messages like this and signaling that is being done.
Wow.
That's what exosomes are. They are what is going to multiply, amplify, leverage the repair response.
Wow. Okay. No, that is absolutely gold. Now, coming back to the stem release and then signal and mobilize, these are this protocol that you have now developed. Um,
Mhm.
when you take stem regen release and you put these 10 million odd stem cells into circulation that's coming out of your bone marrow, it's your own. We've now understood how all of that side works. Um, you have also now developed Signal and Mobilize, and one
Mhm.
is about the getting the stem cells to the right place, and one is about
Mhm.
making sure that the noise, the inflammation, the systemic chronic inflammation that we all experience as we get older, basically doesn't interfere with those molecules getting to their right place, that the microcirculation is intact so that the stem cells can be delivered to that.
Mhm.
And when I first read about your protocol, this whole protocol, I was like, oh my God, this is magic, because this is the two missing pieces of, you've got the stem cells now, but maybe you've got nitric oxide disturbances and you can't, you've got circulation issues, you've got a diabetic wound or whatever the case may be, and you can't get the the goods to the place. So explain to me your thinking about that, how you came up with this whole 1, 2, 3 sort of step protocol, and how that all works with Mobilize and Signal.
Okay. Well, I have worked on these products for many years. Actually, I released similar products in the past that were doing the exact same thing that Mobilize and Signal are doing. So there's quite a bit of R&D and testing behind these products, but they emerge from the general understanding. When I give lectures, oftentimes just to shock people's mind, I show a video of the work of Doris Taylor. So Taylor took the heart of a mouse, circulated on the cardiac muscle digestive enzymes that digested the heart
All the
muscle
muscle.
itself.
Yeah.
So at the end of like something like 10, 12 hours, there's nothing left of the heart except the soft skeleton of the heart, like the connective tissue of the heart. And on that connective tissue that still retains the trace that it was a heart, they took stem cells from the bone marrow of the animal and simply laid these stem cells on that tissue. And a week later, they have a beating heart in a test tube. I mean, they're
Hey.
just like, I mean, amazing. So this shows the real raw regenerative power of bone marrow stem cells.
Wow.
So the question is, why are these stem cells not doing that regenerative work in everybody? Because they work in most people. Like when you're still healthy at 70, 75 years old, your stem cells have done a good job to keep you like this, for it. We're not talking about the full regeneration of a heart, but it's little by little, it's repairing. Look at the study that I briefly mentioned before, where we get these people with congestive heart failure. 6 months later, they have a normal heart. It has happened, but we don't get
Wow.
this in everybody. So the
Mm.
question to me is not are because oftentimes people's question is, are stem cells working? I mean, I hear experts, medical, like doctors sometimes saying, oh, stem cells are really just, it's a scam. It's not really working. It is to be so unaware of
Yeah.
the whole entirety of the stem cell research field and the field of stem cell science.
Yeah.
But it's a message that's coming from the people who got some form of stem cell treatment and they did not see any benefits. So the question to me is why? Why do we see people with great results and people with virtually like no results? And there are many reasons. There's not only two, but the two main ones that comes to me is that when you release stem cells, they can be fairly big. Like a stem cell can go up to 30 micron. Capillaries are 12 microns. First,
Yeah.
and you need to understand your capillaries is the route to deliver stem cells to your tissue. If that stem cells cannot get into that fine capillary, the tissue that is irrigated by this capillary will cannot receive stem cells. Therefore, it's cut out from the process of air. So, of course, that organ or that tissue will suffer from any disease associated with that tissue. You
Yeah.
don't get proper delivery of stem cells in your pancreas. Well, you will develop diabetes because you continue to lose cells in your pancreas. So that's the general idea. We need to open this microvasculature. If somebody has a chronic issue for, let's say, a number of years, and it's not repairing, you are releasing stem cells. The proof is that you're still alive. So you are releasing stem cells. Why are they not going where they need to go to repair? And one of the main reasons is that the chronic nature of the problem has affected the local microvasculature. Stem cells cannot get there. So
Mhm.
Mobilize was developed to open this microvasculature, this microcirculation. So previous products that I did were not as complete as what we have today as Mobilize. So Mobilize is essentially four technologies. So nattokinase to increase blood fluidity, nitric oxide producer to dilate arterioles. So now you open arterioles, you bring more blood to capillaries, but capillaries will expand passively. So to expand, they need to be in an environment that is flexible and allows this expansion. So we have bioflavonoids and plant extract that supports this, like the rebuilding strong and flexible connective tissue around capillaries. And then you need to have a healthy glycocalyx. So we have the polysaccharides to rebuild the glycocalyx. So all of this is into one product, which is Mobilize.
Mhm.
Um, and then we have Signal. I'll get to that in a second. But when I produced the two, I thought I'm expecting a lot of result from Signal. People will say
Mhm.
the moment we take release with Signal, wow, we see like amazing results. They do, but I've heard this more with Mobilize. Like
Wow.
Mobilize has brought so much benefit that I wouldn't say more than I was expecting, but I'm really pleased. A lot of
Mhm.
people taking release, releasing their own stem cells, getting some level of benefits the moment they added Mobilize to the protocol, and they saw like superior benefits. Signal is to address the second obstacle stem cell function in the body, and it's the understanding that inflammation is oftentimes misunderstood or misconceptualized, if you want, in medicine. We think of it as the problem. We say inflammation, even called inflammaging, is the cause of aging, is the cause of many diseases. It's associated with many diseases. But inflammation does not happen in a vacuum. Inflammation is the result of something else, which is
Mm.
unrepaired lesions in the body that keep signaling for repair, that signal that is technically localized. It's to tell stem cells, come here. This is where we need repair. But because you cannot achieve that repair, the signal keeps going. And
Keeps
over
going.
time, that signal
Cytokines and
spreads
chemokines.
everywhere. And
Yep.
now it's become systemic and it's
Hmm.
affecting a lot of things in your body. And that's where the medical thinking starts. You need to suppress that inflammation. And the message actually is just to say, no, you don't need to suppress the inflammation. You need to repair the places that are secreting that inflammation. But because now the message, the stem cell, so these inflammation marker are everywhere in your bloodstream. So the stem cell, when it is released, and it should look for where inflammation signals are being released. Now these inflammation signals are everywhere in the body. So it's almost like the stem cell has lost its GPS system.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
cannot find what is the tissue that is in need of repair. So we need to suppress this background information. So
Hmm.
signal is that purpose. So it's a bunch of plant extract, not aimed at removing inflammation in the body in the sense of addressing inflammation as a problem. It's aimed at suppressing that background of silent systemic inflammation to
Yep.
allow stem cells to better see where the signal is coming from and go there. An easy analogy is just like to say, let's say you've got a fire that is somewhere in your house for now 2 weeks and it's very small. You don't even see it because there's so much smoke that you've lost sight of where the fire is. But
Yeah,
now the
yeah.
smoke is bothering you. So now you're developing an entire science that is your anti-smoke science. Because smoke prevents you from sleeping, you cannot see very well, you get high irritation, you breathe it. So now we develop a whole science to handle the smoke. And all I'm saying is like, why don't you just like shut down the smoke temporarily to see where the fire is and just put out the fire?
Yeah,
Then
yeah, yeah.
you don't need the anti-smoke strategies. So right now we have a
Put the
whole
fire out.
anti-inflammatory science, and I'm saying the science should be an like a pro-repair approach, and then you don't have to deal with the inflammation problems.
Wow, God.
So
That's
that's what
like
these two products are for.
yeah, yeah, that just a really beautiful 1, 2, 3 that you can get your head around, and I love the whole, keeping it simple for people, and the name's
Hmm.
gold, signal and mobilize and release, because it's sort of like that one does this and this one does that, right? And you sort of can get your head
Exactly.
around it, right? And I mean, I have a hyperbaric oxygen clinic, and it's the same when people come into the hyperbaric oxygen chamber. I want to change the terrain of the person before they come in, ideally. Can't always, depends on the situation,
Hmm.
but I want to give them the right nutrients to have on board for their healing to take place, and so on and so forth. You really have to consider the terrain. Otherwise, the results will be mediocre, right? If we don't have, yeah, we're giving it this wonderful oxygen in this case, which is helping again release, more stem cells after 20 odd sessions. You don't get it straight away, but it helps. Now, if you put Stemregen release in there and mobilize and signal and then hop into a
Hmm.
hyperbaric, I mean, my brain goes to like stacking of these things and how can we amplify their sort of abilities. But that mindset of not just band-aid approaching everything, which modern medicine tends to
Hmm.
do. You've got a symptom, here's a steroid or here's a painkiller, or that's going to cause a whole raft of other problems down the line because they haven't taken those
Hmm.
things into consideration. Also, the systems approach, that we're looking at the whole body as a system and how that repair system. I mean, my company, Avum Labs, we focus on the immune system. You're focusing on the repair system, and this is a very powerful approach to getting people healing. Now, I've heard on some of your webinars, and especially when this first came out, I remember watching case histories of people with some pretty
Hmm.
horrific
Hmm.
situations, like Parkinson's and multiple sclerosis, I think I watched, and people with even paralysis, that were paralyzed partially. Um,
Hmm.
what are some of those incredible stories? Have you got a couple of those to just round this out before we wrap up? Any, couple of stories of
I
people's
mean,
lives, this whole
yeah,
range?
we have many stories, but before getting into those stories, I think it's important for me to say the aim here is not to treat diseases, it's not to have an impact on disease. the main message here is to understand that we develop problem because of a gradual failure in our endogenous ability to repair. Once we understand this, past a certain age, we just want to increase that ability to repair. And we have never looked at it this way. We never had tools to increase repair. And now that we have that, what can it do for our health? And it's to understand also that if you look at what are the main common characteristics of centenarians and super centenarians. They look at all kinds of things, gene expression, specific genes, flora, many, many things. And at the end of the day, the only two things that are common to all centenarians and super centenarians are two things. Number one, they are happy. Number two, they have not developed age related disease until a few months before their passing. So anything that will delay the onset of degenerative problems is going to give you longevity and more than longevity, better quality of life
Yeah,
during
yeah.
your life. So, and when we understand that we develop problem because of a loss of our endogenous ability to repair, then suddenly if you have a means or a strategy to support this innate ability of the body to repair, it's probably like your strongest strategy for keeping the health that you have today for decades to come. That's the aim. That's to me is the main pursuit here is to keep you healthy for decades to come. But of course, we have people with diseases that have taken the product, and of course, to show you that the product can be good to help your heart and keep your heart healthy, it's difficult to study a healthy heart. Like you take the product for a year and I tell you, great, your heart is as healthy as last year, so the product is amazing. No, you cannot draw these conclusions. So we have to start from something that's broken to show that we can unbreak it or improve it, and that's the way to demonstrate that yes, it does a healing process. It supports a repair process on your heart. So as you're healthy, you will engage in this repair process and will keep your heart healthy as you grow. I say the heart, but anything else in your body. So that is really our pursuit. So
Yeah.
along the way, we do have those stories. So you mentioned, the Parkinson, the spinal cord injury. We have these cases. We have them on video, so they are undeniable. We have the
They're
heart
amazing.
study, so I can talk about this one. One is more controlled. So it's a study that we do on congestive heart failure. So because we've seen it over the years, not because I thought that this would be a condition that would respond well to releasing stem cells, it's just because we've seen it. So the study is growing. So right now we're somewhere around like 40, 50 patients in the study, but we published the first 10, and the reason why we published the first 10 is because one of the biggest obstacle in our study that we're doing right now, our clinical trials, is people join the clinical trial and at some point in the process, they go and see their family doctor and they tell their doctor, oh, I'm part of that study, where I'm taking this pill and it's supporting my stem cells. And invariably, the doctor tells them, you're wasting your time. Nothing can help you with whatever problem you have. We have a study on the lung, we have a study on Parkinson, and the biggest problem to recruit people is to keep them in the study. They're interested, and
Unbelievable.
then the doctors tell them you're wasting your time. So we lose them.
Oh,
So we wanted to put there some evidence. So the study is a longer study, it's ongoing, but we published the first 10 patients, and the outcome is of the first 10 patients looking at ejection fraction, which is a measure of cardiac function. All 10 patients after 6 months have normal heart function for their age.
wow.
So we basically have reversed the problem in every single individual. So I don't want to say here the product cures. All I want to say is it supports this new understanding here that I'm pushing forth, which is the fact that we develop problem because of a gradual failure of endogenous repair. The moment that we support our ability to repair, then suddenly the body can use this ability to repair and can
Can
it can
fix
have like
anything.
huge impact in your life.
Yeah, yeah.
Can
This
fix
is
anything. So we have
yeah,
the heart. We have one place where we have a lot that we're pushing right now is with surgery. So surgery is a controlled injury. Your
yeah,
body needs to heal that injury very quickly because an open wound is a risk for your life. It's
yeah.
sepsis, biologically speaking. I mean, so the body is designed to close that quickly. If you don't close it quickly, if you don't have enough stem cells in circulation, it's the local fibroblasts that kick in and you get like a keloid scar tissue. One
Mm-mm.
of the most common complication, let's say, of knee replacement surgery is you develop so much scar tissue that you are limited into your range of motion. It's because of the scar tissue. The
Wow.
moment you put more stem cells in circulation, now you don't, it's not your local fibroblast that kick in, it's your stem
Uh,
cells that can become skin, capillaries, muscles, nerve
wow.
terminals, sebaceous gland, everything. So you make now a normal skin so people recover super fast and they don't have those kinds of complications. So we're documenting this right now in studies with, right now it's mostly working with orthopedic surgeons, but
Hmm.
surgery right now is a cool focus simply because the impact of your own stem cells is seen like very quickly.
Yep.
The last areas where we have a lot of cases, which is close to you, is athletes.
Yeah.
So because we have had many people who report greater performance after taking Stemregen release. The product is not a performance product at all. So what is happening is that you can repair much faster from all the small micro lesions of your workout the day before. So you can work out stronger
Yep.
on the next day, and you don't accumulate unrepaired micro lesions, which is where over time you get major injuries. So that means you don't get injuries, so you're not interrupted into your old cycle of training. So at the
Yep.
end, over time, you just develop greater performances. So now we're starting to do this with a lot of athletes. So doors are opening right now with professional
Wow.
football, baseball, hockey teams, so
And you've
lacrosse.
actually got
So
the
right now, this is an
yeah.
area that we're pushing.
Yeah, you've got the sport specifically for
We get
athletes.
the NSF certification.
Yeah, that
That's
with the
right.
NS,
That's
yeah,
right. For
that's
that
certified
purpose.
as well for that. That has, made sure that all of the ingredients that you've used are completely, yeah, okay for all the
Right.
ruling bodies out there. And I'm passionate about that because I think athletes should have access to the top things, and they get excluded from a lot of the things just because it's got something that could be considered.
Mhm.
And which they don't even get the normal standard of
Yeah.
care, really. They get below standard of care that you would like for your young athletes. So that's really, really gold that you've made that option available to them as well. Christian, you've been absolutely wonderful today. I want to thank you once again for all this incredible work. I watch you pretty much every day on my social media channels and follow along, and it is one of the most popular products that I have. And in New Zealand, we only have the release currently, but hopefully that will be, changing shortly, and we can get the rest of the protocol down here. We're just got to, jump through
I think so.
hoops and a few things that need to be sorted out on that side of things. But hopefully, but release itself is a very, very powerful one as well. And for those that are listening outside of New Zealand that can get access to the entire protocol, then that would be the best thing to do. And read Cracking the Stem Cell Code and waiting for Christian's new book to come out. Do you have any timeline, Christian, about when this is sort of due out?
It
Might be a
started
while.
5 years ago, so that gives you an idea of my timeline. So,
Yeah.
but I want to do this year. It will be this year.
Yeah, maybe AI can help with that process, like you say, speed it up, get it out the door, at least with all the administrative
Oh,
stuff
it
that
is.
goes along with a book,
Yeah.
which is huge, people,
Yeah.
having released a few
Yeah.
myself. Christian, thank you so much for the work you do. You're such a dedicated, humanist, really, like someone who really, looks out for people. And I know, with my stories in the past year. You've had some advice from you, both on the business front and on the health front with Mum, and also your kind patience with me as I've dropped the ball a number of times. So I just think you're absolutely legend. Thank you so much, Christian, for being on the show today. It's been wonderful.
My pleasure. Thank you.